Hello, my name is Melissa Perkins, and this is the recording for Assignment 5, or a reflection on the teaching unit that we did for this course. The teaching unit that I did was a 2-day course for a 5th grade class, and it was on the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So to begin, how do the tasks yield appropriate evidence of the identified understandings? The 5th grade class that I taught to was about 15 students that are in 5th grade. There were no English language learners in that class. To give a little bit of the demographic, no known challenges to reading. They were asked to read the biography that I showed, the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and then come to class prior to the day 1 assignment in our unit to discuss and to proceed with our kind of lessons. So how did the task yield appropriate evidence of the identified understandings? I asked the students to prepare a book box. It was a slide presentation for the remote learners. I think there's one remote learner in that class. And the book box was to be prepared from the facts read within the biography. The students were asked to first draw on a paper and use organized clusters with at least 4 clusters and at least 3 facts per cluster. So if you're familiar with those, it's kind of like a lollipop that's drawn on a paper. That first cluster would be the topic of the book. In this case, it would be Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And then to have kind of lollipops that come out, different clusters where they can be topics about the book. In this case, the 5th graders were not given specific topics, so they had to organize those however they saw fit. So it could be that they write about her youth, you know, the schooling that she had, maybe the jobs that she's had, the mentors that she's had, the different places she's lived. Could be any of those, and then different facts per each cluster. So if it was, you know, about her childhood, you know, where did she grow up? You know, what did her mom and dad do? Anything that they would have read within the book. And the students are allowed to supplement those book boxes with pictures from internet searches, and they do all have Chromebooks assigned to them. So in that way, the students were allowed to be a little bit creative and to make those clusters before making their book boxes. And then they were also on day 2 asked to write a 2 or more page paper and submit that in Google Docs. And they could use the clusters that they used on organized clusters from day 1 to write that document. They had their books throughout this lesson. And then they were asked to verbally share what they put in their paper in the author's chair. So the paper was asked to have, they were asked to have a minimum of 10 facts from the book. And again, they can use their organized cluster that they put together to write their paper. But they didn't have to stick strictly to the facts that they put in their organized cluster. How did the task involve a complex, real-world, authentic application of the identified knowledge, skill, and understanding? In my view, there's a few different ways that they showed that. Reviewing the vocabulary, so prior to the first day, we reviewed several different vocabulary words from the book. There was a glossary in the back of the book that they could have gone to. I didn't point to that when I asked them those questions. But I pointed to it afterwards. But we discussed in a group where they raise their hand the meaning of the words anti-Semitism, discrimination, gender discrimination, dissent, equal rights, Supreme Court, and trailblazer. All those words were used within the book and defined either in context or throughout the book. And then they were defined again at the back in student-friendly language. So we discussed what those words meant, and the kids giving their depiction of what those words meant and what they learned from the book. And we also discussed the timely nature of this kind of real world topic because Ruth Bader Ginsburg had just passed and her life was being celebrated kind of throughout the U.S. and beyond. So another task the way they showed that was writing a paper and sharing with the class, demonstrates their reading, writing, and verbal communication skills. So they had to have read the book themselves, they had to write that paper, and then verbally communicate that in the author's chair. They prepared their organized cluster, and that demonstrates that the students have an ability to organize facts in categories. And again, those categories weren't specifically supplied to the students. They had to think about how they would organize those facts. And also preparing a book box allowed them to show creativity with the facts, learning through the biography and the graphics found if they wanted to supplement through the internet search. So they got to show a little bit of the creative side of how they would bring those facts together. How are a variety of appropriate assessment formats used to provide additional evidence of learning? There were several formative ways to give a formative assessment based on their reading. We had a discussion of whether all had read the book at the beginning of the day one, about the book topic, and again about the vocabulary that we had discussed. And that was kind of my formative assessment of kind of who read the book and did they really understand some of those words within the book. Preparing the organized cluster, again, they had to have a minimum of 4 clusters and 3 facts, or the same within a slide presentation, or the book box, and present those with 90% accuracy. They also were provided a rubric that was prepared and given within the lesson and given to the students. That was available to them. We reviewed it, and that was available to them during their lesson so that they could look and see what the expectation was. The paper was to use complete sentences. They would get 5 points. 5 components in each sentences was reviewed, which they should have known from 3rd grade, but we reviewed that. A minimum of 3 facts for each of the 4 clusters. Each of those were worth 4 points, so a total of 16 points. And then they had a way to add a graphic or draw a picture based on what they had learned and submit that with the paper, and that could be 2 extra points of credit that they could receive. And a minimum of 90% was expected on that assessment of their knowledge of from the biography. So finally, how are the students given the opportunity to self-assess and reflect upon their learning and performance? And I'm not sure, I think I might do this a little bit different if I had it to do over, and probably will, but it was not formally discussed within the lesson plan I submitted, but the students could self-assess either during this, or while they were doing it, or after doing any of the lessons that were asked. The question and answer sessions with the teacher and with the class before each class, and at the end of each class we reviewed what they did. And so the students would definitely have to kind of think in their heads, what did they remember, what do they want to share. When they made the organized cluster, the books were available. They would have to assess, could they make those organized clusters? And that was discussed without going back to the book and to first try that. But if they wanted to fact check or supplement that, their books were available to them. So it wasn't a test of memorization. If they wanted, they shouldn't be rereading the entire book, or they wouldn't be expected to have to do that. But they did get to self-reflect on, how much do they remember, and what do they want to go back and check just to be sure. A lot of the years within the book, the students did go back and kind of look to see if they remembered those. And this was true during also the making of the book box, where they had to reflect, during, before, or after, are these facts correct? When they were writing their papers, certainly, and when they were sharing their work. And one nice thing about that I didn't cover about this biography, some of these early reader books, this is probably lower than a 5th grade level would have to be, but some of them have challenge questions in the back. So we were able to go through some of these, and these are multiple choice, so they If they read the book, it would be pretty easy for them to show that what they know. If not, they would have to review the book. So it was an enjoyable process, and definitely one that the students enjoyed sharing what they learned. And that is my reflection. Thank you.